I welcome all our guests, both in person here in the Hall of Fame of the Bangabandhu International Conference Center in Dhaka, Bangladesh, as well as thousands of audience around the world who are tuned in to this session on the third day of the World Congress on IT. And today's session is on Industrial Revolution 4.0 skilling. So we have all heard about the Industrial Revolution 4, which is sweeping the world as we speak. But to understand Industrial Revolution 4, as your moderator, this is Habibullah Karim, the moderator of this session. I'm going to walk you through the past three industrial revolutions very briefly so that you have a general understanding of where do we stand on Industrial Revolution 4. So Industrial Revolution 1, as you can imagine, happened a couple of centuries ago in the 18th century. And that was brought on by mechanization enabled by steam power. And that, revolutionized, all the textile mills in the UK first, and then the rest of the world, especially in Europe and North America. Obviously, the South Asian countries could not take advantage much of the first industrial revolution. But then 100 years later, in the 19th century, we had the Industrial Revolution 2, which enabled the creation of assembly lines, and that was powered not by steam power, but by electricity. So electricity enabled Industrial Revolution 2 in the late 19th century, and that also created the platform for the subsequent industrial revolutions, which is IR3, Industrial Revolution 3, which gave us partial automation through use of computers and memory programming, meaning that we had devices that could remember what we programmed and what we kept as data. And that happened in the second half of the 20th century. And finally, this has brought us to this current Industrial Revolution 4, which aims at total industrial automation, where networking of all systems leads to cyber-physical production systems. So all this is a mouthful. All this sounds very sci-fi, but this is happening in real life today. So, and therefore, smart factories in which production systems and components and people communicate via a network and production is nearly autonomous. So that is what Industrial 4.0 is all about. So, pretty much autonomous production systems and autonomous productivity. So in this session, as we're going to talk about Industry 4.0 skilling, so let us talk about what kind of skills are necessary. So I'm going to give a very brief overview of that in a minute. So basically, Industrial Revolution 4.0 skills comprise of 5G and 6G networking. Right now, in Bangladesh, we don't even have 5G. We only have 4G. But in many countries, they're already, trying out 5G, and the blueprint for 6G is already in the works. And then comes Industrial IoT, Internet of Things, but which is industrial. So from sensors to remote sensing, remote data acquisition, all of that comes under Industrial IoT. And then cloud computing, that, as you know, this is becoming a norm these days. Data science and data analytics. Of course, more advanced software engineering, robotics, artificial intelligence and machine learning, modeling, blockchain architecture and development, cybersecurity, and many other newfangled skills which are going to be essential for working with Industrial 4.0, that is, the onslaught of that is going to change the overall job landscape right before our eyes. So let me, with this brief background on IR4 and the skills necessary, let me now introduce my panelists. We have a very distinguished panel of speakers for this session. We have Dr. Leong Moon Kyu, who is the director of the Institute of System Science at the National University of Singapore. So welcome, Moon Kyu. It's great to see you. Moon Kyu has also been instrumental in, training or imparting, the AI and ML skills to entrepreneurs in Bangladesh, especially in the IT sector. So I will come to Moon Kyu on some of those questions. Then we have Mr. Abdul Bari. So Mr. Abdul Bari is a data scientist and innovation specialist at the Digital Entrepreneurship and Innovation Ecosystem Development Project. It's a very new project of the ICT division of the government of Bangladesh under the Bangladesh High-Tech Park Authority. So welcome, Mr. Bari. And then we have with us Dr. Lawrence Ma, my good old friend from college, almost 36 years back. So Dr. Lawrence Ma is the president of Hong Kong Blockchain Society, and he is also the founder and CEO of a blockchain and AI startup in Hong Kong called eMali.io. So welcome, Lawrence. Then we have with me Mr. Fahim Masroor, a close friend and industry colleague here in Bangladesh, who is also a former president of Basis, and he's the founder and CEO of the largest job portal in Bangladesh called bdjobs.com. So welcome, Fahim. And finally, we have with us Mr. Ayupov Bakhdir Savkatovich. I hope I have pronounced your name right. Yeah. Okay. So Mr. Ayupov is the Deputy Director of the IT Park of Uzbekistan, and this is his first visit to Bangladesh. So welcome to Bangladesh and welcome to this session. So on this, Industry 4.0 skilling, let me start out with Moon Kyu. So Dr. Leong Moon Kyu, I would like you to tell us how Industrial Revolution 4.0 is going to shape the world by 2030, the target date for achieving the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. So from that perspective, how do you think Industrial Revolution 4.0 is going to shape the world?
Thank you, Karim, and thank you all really for inviting me to this prestigious event. I'm really happy to be here. With regard to your question, I think that the Industrial Revolution 4.0, it's really not about technologies. It's really about the disruption and the opportunity created by this disruption. As you said, it's the fourth time we're doing this. It's a unique opportunity to do things differently. As you said, there has been a long cycle, 100 years here, 50 years there, between each of these revolutions. So we will probably only live through one of them. And it's an opportunity to reinvent the way we do things. That's the biggest advantage that IR 4.0 is going to give us. We will come in here with the ability to relook at processes and see how we can use technology. It's not the end, it's a support, it's the tools, right, that ultimately transform the mindset. What we have here, right, especially when it comes to how we want to look at the UN SDG goals, right, by 2030. We're not here to look at adding more technology because, technology in and of itself will not lead to SDG goals. We're here really to reconceptualize approaching the same old industries, but in a way that is more green, more fair, right? That looks at how people are doing things and then change the way that, for example, supply chains are happening today, right? If we imagine, now this is technology enabled anyway, right? But rather now we focus on, say, local consumption instead of global consumption. Local consumption. You eat things that are created close to you, but you avoid the middleman, right? So you need to have a grid-enabled system, apps, where suppliers and supply and demand are actually linked together without requiring large factories and a lot of processing. All of these are against the green goals. We want to be able to go point to point. We want to be able to shorten some of these things. We want to provide fairer wages or remuneration to the farmers or to the producers, right? Cutting out the middleman, removing the cost of warehousing, removing the cost of global logistics.
Right.
If we can do a lot of these things, we will then be closer to the SDG goals. Right?
Okay, thank you, Munkyu. You're absolutely right that one of the major goals of SDG is a more equitable world, and in a more equitable world, people need to be paid fair wages, and people need to have fair access to resources. So I'll come back to that, but we'll to that thought. That's a very important thought regarding how technology is disrupting our known way of life. So at this point, I will come to Mr. Abdul Bari. So Bari, you are an expert on data science. So my first question to you is, because Munkyu has talked about the potential for disruption through Industry 4.0 and the technologies that are being developed. So data science and data analytics has probably one of the biggest potential to disrupt the way we do things at present. So my first question to you is, why is Industrial Revolution 4.0 skilling important for developing countries like Bangladesh?
Thank you, Karim bhai. First of all, it's a very good question. But the answer is not that difficult. It's very simple. It is, in fact, skilling our national or our citizen or our people is as important as skilling people elsewhere. In America and Europe, it is equally important. Because you might think that our market is not ready for fourth industrial revolution, or not that ready as America. But country like Bangladesh or similar countries, they have overseas ambition. They have young population, and they want to serve the overseas market. So if any market need any kind of skill, Bangladesh should try to develop that skill as well, including its local perspective.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And don't underestimate the market demand for the product that fourth industrial revolution can offer. Let me tell you, BD jobs. I'm sure it's using NLP and other advanced technology in matchmaking between employer and employees, right? If you talk about the e-commerce sites, or they need to introduce very powerful recommendation system, because it's a big place. They have thousands of sellers and maybe tens of thousands of buyers. If you can do proper matchmaking and in real time, then probably people will be lost in the site. So they need to devise a lot of powerful recommendation system that can offer right product to the right customer at the right time. Right. So in terms of skill requirement, I think Bangladesh exactly need those skills as is needed in America, Europe, or elsewhere.
Beautiful. Now I'll come back to that on more specifically on the data science skills later on. But that's a good point, that all this AI or ML modeling, or using natural language processing for online portals, these are skills that are that was not required, let's say, 5 years ago. but this is something that is required today, even in a country like Bangladesh. Very good point. I will come now to Dr. Lawrence Ma. So Lawrence, uh, you have been, one of the passionate advocates of blockchain technology, not only in Hong Kong, but globally. So as you know that blockchain is one of the top technologies talked about amongst the portfolio of technologies for Industrial Revolution 4.0. And this has the potential to disrupt many industries, not just financial industry, but supply chain and many other industries. But at the same time, we all know, because we have worked with you on this for the last 2 years, and in Bangladesh we have been organizing the blockchain Olympiads, and also this year we had the privilege to host the International Blockchain Olympiad. But we know that, learning blockchain is difficult. It's not that easy to do. It has a steep learning curve and is difficult for the general people to understand what this is all about. So, but at the same time, as we worked with Blockchain Olympiad, we saw that this is also an opportunity for the Asia Pacific region to leapfrog ahead of the traditional advanced economies. Can you elaborate on that? How is this happening? And why that could be such an important opportunity for developing countries?
Okay, thanks. First of all, thanks for the organizer for the invitation. I think blockchain. I mean, in the 4.0, there are a lot of technology, and I think blockchain is one. I think is that really I think ultimately is dealing with. We're looking at a lot of very fundamental infrastructure. In particular, I think it's about trust. Okay, trust is something that is needed, right, when you do transactions. I think why blockchain can be, as you say, can be applied to horizontally to a lot of industries, because what let's see what blockchain try to achieve or try to bring us is, I think one thing blockchain trying to bring to us is what we call single truth. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you have any business process or any kind of transaction, there are a lot of people involved in that process. I mean, a lot of so-called the counterparty and stakeholders. Right now, as we currently, when we have a lot of maybe when people, we don't really have a single truth. I mean, people doing all sorts of things. Some people may be process this digitally, some manually, paper-based. So we don't really have single truth all the time. We have single truth at the end, maybe when we try to do settlement, when we have to reconcile things. But you think about this, while doing the whole process of a transaction, some people might have more information than the other. And what is the consequence? The consequence is that when you try to think about supply chain finance or think about the insurance claim, so that means that when you're trying to do the settlement, there are a lot of inefficiency, and you have to spend a lot of resources trying to tally things. And also, if you don't have single truth, that could also mean there'll be fraud, right? Because if someone know more information than the other, then maybe some bad character might want to, I don't know, fraud another. But if everyone know the same thing, then it's difficult, right, to fraud. So I think this is a opportunity right now in the Asia Pacific, say, is I can see this really democratizing things. Like before, I mean, a lot of these things are obviously we have this information asymmetric, so you have all this information concentrated on some of the big guys. But now when we talk about decentralized, meaning that we're bringing back to the individual or to the edge, so-called, I can see that this is a huge opportunity. Like, for example, I'll just give you one example. I mean, like currency payment. I mean, when we talk about currency, we always think that currency is in the realm of hand of central bank, the bank, right? But look at what is going on right now because of stable coin, things like that. It actually forces the central bank or the government to actually react to that. I mean, this kind of thing cannot be imagined, right? I mean, before, I mean, how can you imagine, like, now we actually going to do something, okay, back to like startup, or people can actually sort of force the central bank or the government to react. So I think there's a lot of opportunities because of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. Uh, you know, what you pointed out, two very important issues. One is the asymmetry of information. So blockchain technology can address that. So it can make information available to everyone, irrespective of their power base.
Right.
So not necessarily the more powerful will have more information. With blockchain, you can democratize the access to information. And the second was the issue of the single truth, the issue of trust. So that is fundamental to any transactional system. So that's very good. I'll come back to you on that. So how we can leverage that further as we see the Industry 4.0, Industrial Revolution 4.0 playing out. Let me now come to Mr. Fahim Masroor. So Fahim, you have built up the largest job portal in Bangladesh, which is also connected to Asia Pacific job portals, if I'm not mistaken. So, and one of the issues that is of concern to the youth is the fact that the World Economic Forum, they have forecast that their forecast says that because of Industrial Revolution 4.0, more than 5 million jobs would be lost in the next 5 years, 10 years time frame. So the first question that comes to the minds of young people is how should they prepare for the looming Industrial 4.0 era in view of the demand-supply mismatch? Because what they are learning today may not be relevant for the job market, or the skills they are acquiring may not be the skills in hot demand. So how do you see the youth addressing this mismatch?
Thank you, Karim bhai. I think this is a very relevant question, given that there are a lot of concerns on the employment segment. So I think that, of course, there will be huge kind of jobs to be lost. At the same time, I think the study also says that there will be much more new jobs because of the transformation that is going on. So on net, I think everyone probably agrees that there will be more employment than before. Now, to what extent we are, or our youths or our ecosystem are ready, and I think this is the right platform to discuss this type of issues, and I'm happy that this year's kind of theme has been the fourth IR for this session. So I would probably take it a little bit on a kind of philosophical level first, then probably come down a little bit down. I think what this overall industrial revolution, like fourth IR or whatever they are actually doing, they are actually probably giving, at the same time they are, as some of the speakers have mentioned, giving more power to people, democratizing a lot of information. At the same time, they are also giving a lot of things in a central level. Say, just take the case of the typical everyday use case of us using social media. So I think both Facebook and Google knows that there are how many people are there in this auditorium and what we are probably going to say in next few words. So there is a high level of predictability, high level of kind of precision, like precise predictability owned by few of the global technology companies who are actually much more ahead in this whole game. So whether that actually brings to a situation where it is actually, rather than what the theme for this year, the great equalizer, ICT, whether it will actually create the other way around, that it might create a much more like corporatized kind of world, that I think also is an issue. So the reason I am actually mentioning about this kind of philosophical aspect is, I think this is also related with the employment thing. Because what is going to happen, there will be two types of jobs on a kind of like, because of this kind of transformation. One will be much more designing the new kind of technology, designing how the machine will work, how the machine will gather information, process information, and that the machine will actually contribute in the production level. At the same time, there will be a lot of kind of operators who don't need to do anything, who just need to kind of maintain or do a very mundane type of jobs. So I think there will be two layers of jobs. Now there are a lot of layers of jobs, like though we call it blue collar, white collar or whatever, but still there are hundreds of layers of jobs. But I think those layers will be much more demarcated now. There will be few people, of course, few people who will know what data to actually analyze, how to analyze that, how to train the machine. Of course, Mr. Bari was telling about the machine learning, but for that machine learning, you need to give lot of parameters for that. And not everyone can do that type of job. This is a very specialized type of job that there will be a lot of requirement. At the same time, once the machine already knows that thing, you need to put that thing in place. So for that, you need separate type of very low level type of people that can be doing that type of thing. So I think this is very important.
Okay.
So I'll just kind of complete with another thing. I think traditionally, though we have been kind of depending too much on the academia or universities, I personally don't think, and whatever we have also observed last few decades, it is not properly the right approach. I think industry needs to be much more forthcoming in developing the skills. So on that count, I think whatever skills will be there, we need to ask the industry. We need to look that whether the industry is actually ready to create that kind of skill or not.
Okay.
So
all right.
there is one aspect that overall, if I come to Bangladesh aspect, what we have seen that traditionally our industry has been based on a much more B2B, I'm talking about ICT industry, much more B2B or B2G type of thing. Most of the IT companies actually serve either government or large businesses. But very few of the companies have been doing developing lot of services or products for end customers.
Okay.
And once we're talking about data, and that's why how Google and Facebook are built. They are actually interacting with millions and billions of people's data. But unfortunately, our local industry, I would not say only Bangladesh, also companies like India, who is much more based on outsourcing thing, they have not been kind of used to working with billions or billions of data.
Right.
Whereas in China, you can see that because there is a very much protected market, their tech companies have been dealing with that kind of consumer end.
So yeah,
from the
I
very
got your
beginning.
point. So basically the focus has been more on B2B and B2G here as opposed to B2C. I'll come to you on that question later on, because that is a very interesting aspect. I mean, how Industry 4.0, Industrial Revolution 4.0 is going to impact business and our lifestyle. I'll come back to you on that. That's a very important question. But also you have raised another very important point, is that needs to be much closer collaboration between industry and academia to make sure that we have the right skills for the next generation. So at this point, I will come to Bakhadir, the Deputy Director of IT Park Uzbekistan. I'll first ask you regarding the Uzbek view on this. So why do you think it is important for Uzbekistan to forge ahead with Industrial Revolution 4.0 technologies such as artificial intelligence or industrial IoT or blockchain for jobs? And why do you think they will drive growth in a developing country like Uzbekistan?
Thank you very much. I think I should start off with the fact that for about 25 years, Uzbekistan has remained a very close country. And there were other priorities. There were reasons for this. I'm not going to go into politics of this, but it was a very close country. We missed a lot of things, a lot of opportunities. So with the new administration that came to power about 4 years ago, the country has opened up. And we are now trying to catch up everything that we've missed. And we've been doing a pretty good job in this. with the very right management, with the right priorities set, the new president, sees development of ICT as one of the top priorities in the strategy development of Uzbekistan. He places a lot of emphasis on this, and there are several reasons for this. Among them is the fact that Uzbekistan is one of the two countries in the world that are double landlocked, which means that you need to cross borders of two countries before you get to the sea. So first is Uzbekistan, another one is Liechtenstein. So that places a lot of challenges in terms of exporting goods. So that's why exporting IT services and products, of course, removes all those physical barriers. So that's why a very big emphasis is being placed on IT. This is the reason why IT Park has been established to facilitate development of IT. And Uzbekistan has a population of 35 million people, and 60% of our population is constituted by young people, which makes it very obvious that that human capital is the biggest and most valuable asset that we should be employing. So that's why education, specifically IT education, has been in focus of the government, and we, as an executive agency, IT Park has been launching a lot of IT education programs. One of them is called 1 Million Uzbek Coders, something that we launched in partnership with the government of United Arab Emirates. On the platform of the global educational platform called Udacity. So as of today, we have more than 1 million people registered and going through this online education. So because we understand that unless we have this critical mass of IT specialists, we cannot talk about further development of this area.
Correct.
So we do expect a huge army of young IT specialists. And this area, we understand that this area, unlike other areas where you have to go through a certain stages of evolution, ICT area gives you an opportunity to leapfrog.
Absolutely.
So this is something that we're applying.
Wonderful.
And the government is placing a lot of emphasis and stakes on development of this.
Okay, great. Great to know that. So I'm sure out of those 1 million new coders that you're developing, some will be for the new skill sets that are required, like for blockchain developers, AI modelers, and all of that. So that's wonderful to know. At this point, let me actually come back to Mr. Bari. So Bari, my next question to you is, you know, data science is normally thought of as a useful technology for countries which have very high levels of automation, and that generates tons of data that needs to be crunched, and you glean new perspectives on that data for better use of marketing strategies or better supply-demand matching and all of that. So in a country like Bangladesh or any other, or like Uzbekistan or any other developing country where we know that we are not at that advanced level of automation, where we are still going through, let's say, stage 1 automation. So why do you think countries like Bangladesh should invest in developing data scientists? For example, yourself.
Thank you, Karim. This is a very exciting question. Let me remind you one thing. This fourth industrial revolution is not going to give you many new technology. Rather, it is being built upon the old technologies which were provided by the previous revolutions, right? Let me talk about AI or even neural network kind of technology. These technologies are older than the so-called fourth industrial revolution, right? People talked about AI in 1940s. People talked about neural networks in 1950s. What made this big difference? And that is the data. Because these are these models and the systems, they are very, very data hungry. They need to be trained with lot of data and different sorts of data. And this fourth industrial revolution or internet or digitization and IoT, all this stuff have been generating a lot of data. And this data could be used to train those AI or machine learning models, right? So that is why data is very important. And if we talk about the developing countries or even Bangladesh, probably we are suffering from having a very good data policy. A very good data policy have 3 or 4 elements. One is data privacy. Other is data security. And third is sensible and ethical use of data. Let me cite one example. We all have smartphones, right? And if you Google about a doctor, there is a very high likelihood that you will getting a photo of a male person. And if you Google with a nurse or midwifery, you will get probably a women person in the photo, right? But statistics is different. If you, probably in the last week, I saw a newspaper article. Currently, among our medical students, more than 50% are female students. Probably 54% to be very specific. This is, and Google is suggesting you, or not Google, Google only searching it. It is being trained in other, somewhere else. But it is suggesting that this is the profession that suits with a male person. This is not ethical use of data science or data science models.
So there is some gender bias in the
Yeah,
data.
definitely. And one more point is, but should we shut our door from Facebook or Google or everything? No, that is not the policy. The idea is we need to promote sensible and ethical use of data. And there are a lot of, anonymization technique. You need to have proper balance between openness and privacy and protection. Let me tell you another example. If you kindly allow me 2 more minutes.
Sure, go ahead.
Say, for example, we have diabetic society, right? All over the country, probably at the Upazila, sub-district level, we have the diabetic society, and they have the data regarding their diabetic patient. But if we could harvest those data, if we could use the proper algorithm to anonymize those data, we could build very good model, and we could predict, see, this is your race, this is your food habit, this is your ethnicity, and this is your lineal background. So at this age, probably you can catch, you have a good chance of becoming diabetic. Or even a diabetic patient, you can predict, as Fahim Bhai was saying regarding predictive analytics, you can predict this is the chance of becoming, catching diabetic retinopathy, kidney disease, and other stuff. So we need to have open data policy, but it should protect privacy, and it should ensure sensible and ethical use of data. And one more point, we all are talking about technology track, but harnessing fourth industrial revolution, since your previous question was regarding skill, on top of the technical skill, probably we need some soft skill as well, like critical thinking, creativity, and probably collaboration and co-creation, right? Correct. And these are the skills, and we need proper leadership, and we need entrepreneurial skill if we want to harness the fourth industrial revolution in its full swing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. You have raised some real good questions, in addition to providing a lot of important issues on data privacy, security, and data democratization. In fact, you have preempted my question on that, so I'll have to ask you a different question next time. But let me come to Dr. Leong Moon Kyu now. You know that, Moon Kyu, you have been working with many different countries as you mentor entrepreneurs in many countries. So, and you yourself have said in your in response to my first question that it is not the technologies per se, but the disruptions they're creating. But as Barry has pointed out, that one of the important pillars of Industrial Revolution 4 is data. But more than data is the connectivity that Industrial 4.0 is bringing together that makes this whole globe one homogeneous, one, kind of like a one monolith of data and Cybertron, so to speak. I don't want to scare anybody. But,
The metaverse.
but given all of that, so where do you see technologies are having the biggest impacts on the services and manufacturing sectors, and how that's going to change the job scenario?
Well, I think our other panelists actually have focused on a fair amount of it. If you look at the industrial part of it, one of the questions why you asked this question to the previous panelists, why should we invest in data, especially with developing countries? That's because you haven't made mistakes yet. If you come to somewhere like Singapore, you'll find that it's a very uneven implementation. Some organizations are very far ahead, and some are quite slow. And because of that, the ones who are ahead have frozen their data that they're collecting, and they did it ahead of everybody else. So they did it before there were standards. And when you do things before there are standards, it's much more difficult to roll back to something that's not so good because you're already ahead of the pack, right? So you had that graph earlier where you have that, 10%, the top 10%. If you're in the top 10%, you will always find it very difficult to move backwards.
Right.
But if you are in the middle part and you are now embarking on a new endeavor, that's when you can think about how industry should be changing. When we work with companies locally, one of the things that they tell us now is that the mindset is changed. I'm not thinking of my factory. I'm thinking of my suppliers. I'm thinking of my customers as well. Because my factory can't run, especially now because of COVID, without all my suppliers. The ships aren't coming in. No supplies, no factory. Right? If I produce, but I can't go out to my customers, or my customers have no money to buy, I'm also no use. So we actually exist in a global ecosystem. The connectivity you talked about. That connectivity is not your digital twin, is not your digital twin of the factory. Your digital twin is the digital twin of the world ecosystem. And then you want to optimize across this ecosystem.
Correct.
When you want to digitize or digitalize, you want your suppliers to be equally digital as well.
Correct.
Right? And so as your customers. So that when your customers have a high demand, your suppliers know it, and your suppliers can prepare so that your factory can build. Right? That's the kind of what data today, if you can share the data, whether, as Lawrence said, through blockchains or otherwise, as a previous panelist also said, you'll be using AI everywhere. Right? So at the end of the day, the data connectivity, the sharing of data in a fair way, in a very in a non-competitive way, right? You want to share data without losing competitiveness. Maybe it's on blockchains, maybe it's other ways, right? And this way, you want to go and change the way that we, as organizations and as industry and industry associations, we want to advise our companies to look at things in that manner. Right, that's the change you want. Then that's the what, right? Then worry about how to do it. That's the skills part. Skills is always about knowing how to do. The what part comes from having a vision of where you want to be and how you want to change, not the company. You want to change the industry.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Monkyu. Actually, you have raised a very good point that sometimes being ahead of the curve can create its own problems.
Yep.
So in that respect, maybe developing countries, we are better off. So
you said you can leapfrog.
That's right. We can leapfrog to the latest platforms, and we can also learn from the exercises for standardizing different aspects of technology use. Wonderful. So let me come to our friend from Uzbekistan again. So Bakhuddin, my next question to you is, you have mentioned about the 1 million coders program that you have, but I'm sure there are not only just coders you need many other types of workers to replace the old workers or old skill sets. So what are the challenges that you're facing as a developing country in skilling, or even more important than skilling, I would say, is re-skilling. So you have to train your workers in learning new skills fit for the fit for a workforce for Industrial Revolution 4. So what are the challenges that you're facing?
I think one of the challenges we're facing is in our ability to track track down the right workforce, to assess the current situation, the current level of skills, and find the right category of people that need to be reskilled. So probably one of the challenges now is lack of information. So that would require a better administration in terms of the domain of the Ministry of Labor, for example, from our side, a better coordination with the Ministry of Higher and Secondary Education. So that is one challenge we're facing, but in terms of IT, now what I just said is more related to all the areas.
All the areas,
but
right.
when it comes to IT, IT Park is doing this job.
Right.
So we have been serving as a point of what would the best word be? Point of attraction for the IT. Yes, for the IT community,
Right.
To get together.
Right. Okay.
So that is one challenge. Another one is not really convincing, but conveying the message to companies about the new ways of working, about these new instruments and capacities. So because they are very much bogged down with what they do. You approach them, you say, if you implement this IT system, for example, you will be better off. And we have a lot of companies that say, please leave me alone. I've been doing this for 35 years. I don't, I'm in my comfort zone. I don't want to go out.
Okay.
So it's about, creating this pressure that would ultimately, convince them that you either go with the flow of time and demands of the modern times, or you're out.
You're left out.
Yeah.
Right, right. No, thank you. That's a very good point. In fact, a lot of times we, it's called the stickiness of, behavior. So you do something and in certain way, you don't want to change it. But, if you can convince them that changing is for their own good, it's good for the society and also good for their bottom line at the end. So in that respect, with that connection, I want to come to, again, Mr. Fahim Masroor. So my specific question on this is, as I was telling you, the impact on businesses, specifically, to remain competitive in a global stage, because it's no longer your local market. You are working as a part of the global competitive market. So in that respect, how, this whole Industrial 4.0 paradigm, it's not just technology, it's not just the processes, the whole paradigm, how is it going to impact the way we do business?
It has actually, there are of course two types of business. One is whatever kind of traditional business we are actually doing, in terms of, say for example, garments, which is the largest manufacturing industry we have. At the same time, there are a lot of new kind of service industry that are coming up, whether it is a kind of financial service or other type of service, say transportation service, like this ride sharing and all those financial service and all those type of things. Now on the traditional thing, which has been our major industrial base, I think lot of the technologies that are going to disrupt are related with the automation and robotics. Like now probably we have known that in China there are like a kind of almost kind of robot who are kind of replacing the swing operators of like that they are kind of garments
Garment
companies,
sector.
and their productivity is probably 100 to 200 times higher. Now, typically, lot of those kind of like manufacturing jobs used to come to countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Bangladesh because the labor cost of China has actually gone very high over the last couple of decades. But now what might actually happen that those kind of like you don't need a lot of human resource. You can just replace with like machine arms, machine robots, and all those things to do those things. So jobs might actually, orders might actually go back to the like previous countries. So there is a risk. So I think to counter that, our local manufacturing also needs to kind of invest in modernizing their kind of technological capability. They have to bring in new kind of machines which works on the robotics and all other things. So I think that is possible, but that requires a lot of investment. And thankfully, our manufacturing sector has been quite strong financially.
Right.
A lot of banks also kind of provide them that type of thing. Or coming back to the service industry, which are much more domestic in nature, whether it is a financial industry or a kind of transport industry and all those things. Just take the case of example of, say, ride sharing. All of us know about companies like Uber or kind of Pata or Shohos. Now, there is that thing, what I actually mentioned in my first part, that there is a risk. Of course, we all are very much kind of positive. We have to be positive on the kind of democratization of the technology, data, and everything. But at the same time, just think about it. A company which is kind of as big as Uber, who has got as in like few $billion of investment on just kind of building the tech and AI capability and all those machine learning capability, the what like recommendation capability that Mr. Bari was actually referring. Is it possible to have that kind of capability by a local startup, which actually happens to compete on the field day in, day out in the local market? Or it can be something like, say, for example, like when Google Pay introduced its service in India, then a lot of the Indian fintech companies were actually very concerned that because like you can't actually compete Google in terms of data. Google probably has much more data because they actually started ahead of the curve. So they already are actually having some endowment of data, not only the technology itself, I'm talking also about the data part. So how local companies can actually compete with these global players who are already ahead, not on both in
So that's
technology
going
and
to have
data.
a big impact.
So I think
Right.
that will define.
Right. No, thank you. Thank you, Fahim. That's a very good point because the bigger companies have a lock on the data that they have already collected. So newer companies have a great disadvantage. But this is one area where technology is a great leveler also. You have talked about Google. So just think about 20 years ago when Google became a search engine. So they were not the biggest, they were the smallest player. But they came with a new technology that allowed them to leapfrog ahead of Yahoo and others. So, we can never rule out that a young company from Bangladesh or Uzbekistan or Hong Kong or what have you, or Singapore, can leapfrog the technologies of today and can then, bridge this gap.
I
So
am not
this is-
saying that it is not possible. What I am just saying that
that's a risk,
our
I understand.
policymakers must be kind of
No,
aware
I
about
understand.
that thinking.
But at the same time, I'll come to policy issues. I will also ask some questions on that. But I am not a believer in policy alone because I myself had a great hand in formulating policies, ICT policies in this country, and I have worked with many other countries. But policies are something that does not define by itself. It's only a part of the ecosystem. A lot of technologies and a lot of business models don't wait for policies, as Munkyu was saying. A lot of times you are ahead of the curve. So you then force the policy. You then force the regulatory changes. So we'll come to those issues later. But let me now come back to Dr. Lawrence Ma. You know, Lawrence, we have seen that in Hong Kong, they're one of the territories or countries that are really thinking ahead, with the Hong Kong MA and Hong Kong different areas of the Hong Kong government in trying to adopt the new technologies, new business models. But at the same time, this is also creating this specter of job loss because this, new automation, new business models will render old jobs obsolete. So how is Hong Kong addressing this job losses versus accelerating business growth under this new paradigm?
Okay, it's a good question. I mean, for example, in this 4.0, I mean, I can just give you two examples. One is in the finance industry, right? We talk about fintech, which is going to be something that is going to be a big thing for the next few years. So, I mean, Hong Kong MA, which is the Central Bank of Hong Kong, recently announced this so-called, the vision of so-called Hong Kong FinTech 2025, which means they sort of outline how the finance of FinTech is going to be, what's going to come. So they have a few pillars. There's some about technology, some about regulation, but there's also one pillar that's about talent, training talents, because ultimately, I mean, you need people to do all these things. So one thing they look into that is how are we going to train this new talent in fintech? So you might be losing jobs in some of the banking traditional job may be gone, but then we need new people doing new things, right? Because we're fintech, we need people. So know some of the new technology. So I think for this, nurturing the young talent is very important. So that means we need to work. It has to be collaboration between academics and also the industry and also the government, for example. So, for example, MA is spearheading giving internship, okay, to young students, university students, to learn about fintech, but not just learning. I mean, they need to practice. That means they need to do projects, right? So they have to bring in the industry, right, the banking sector, give them projects to do. And interestingly, now Hong Kong even thinking even further than that, not just in the university student, but also the secondary school students. So now we have this program called the STEM program, where the Hong Kong government is giving secondary school, they're targeting 500 secondary school. Each of them will pay them about close to 150,000 US dollar to give STEM programs. STEM program in what? In AI, in blockchain, for the secondary school students. Okay, to let them, I mean, appreciate, learn. I mean, not. I think one of the things I think is important is like not just learning the technology itself, but learning the fact that giving or exposed to the students that there are these things coming. There are these things, okay, and not and this is we're talking about 500 schools, not just the top school, but also the second tier schools that right. Where in the past they don't have the opportunity to be exposed to this kind of thing. Okay, now they're trying to give exposed to a lot of people, let them decide, and also not only that, but also to let the parents know, okay, that the world is changing. I mean, it's not going to be the traditional like being a doctor, lawyer, or being a investment banker. That has changed. I mean, the whole thing get disrupted. I mean, all things. I mean, that you used to do or used to be okay, it's not going to be anymore. I mean, all these things coming in. I mean, so to get the parents also know about it.
Okay.
I think this is what Hong Kong is doing.
Okay, thank you. I think this is very important. So what you have just said, it not just impart the skills to current workers, current professionals, or university students, but start early. Impart these skills at secondary school level, or even, if possible, from a primary school level. So with that note, I want to just quickly come back to Moon Kyu again. So you have heard from Lawrence about the Hong Kong experience. So how is Singapore preparing or addressing the Industrial Revolution 4 skills gap?
Well, I really like what Lawrence said about the fintech side. So, and I think many of you are aware that Singapore's Money Authority of Singapore actually set up a sandbox to do this experimentation, right? But more important than just the experimentation is also the visioning, that there is guidance at the policy level about how we want the things to evolve. I mean, for example, central bank digital currencies, things like this, is always in our sight. Maybe not now, right? But if we will look at it. More interestingly, we're looking at future scenarios. For example, like distributed banking, embedded banking.
Right.
Those are things that will be do away without banks, right? And that's something that we do in the governments who are at the visioning level. Now, coming back to the I4.0, since that's this area, the government has also have this strong vision about it, and our Economic Development Board, I mean, obviously we're touching on core industry here, has come up with this thing called SIRI, right? The Singapore, basically the Smart Industry Readiness Index, and that was actually ratified at the world level. And this one here is basically a self-assessment toolkit. And that a self-assessment toolkit is important because it lets not only the big rich companies look at their I4.0 journey, it lets anybody do it, right? And the majority of companies in Singapore is still small and medium enterprises. 90% of them are SMEs. And I'm pretty sure it's the same in Bangladesh, right? It lets everybody use the Smart Industry Readiness Index and do a self-evaluation. That tells you where you are today, right? It's a maturity index. I'm here. Well, for me to really be competitive in the world, I have to be over here, right? That means I now know the gap. I'm very clear. I have a gap. And that gap is an actionable item. It's not like, hey, no, I need to be better. How? I don't know. Having a maturity index gives you a definite path there. In addition to that, the government, the same EDB, has also come up with a prioritization matrix. And that's another work plan, a workbook, where you can actually use it so that the management of the companies can use this maturity index together with this prioritization matrix to figure out what are the concrete steps they need to take, in what order, right, to get from where they are today to where they have to be. And to help them along, they've also published a lot of use cases, right? And the use cases are not from government, they are from other companies, globally as well as Singapore, big companies, small companies, right? So that you can actually learn what other people have done, how they did it, and like we said before, right? The mistakes they made when they did it, so that they can leapfrog, right? In fact, the case study is very clear. What did they do right? What lessons did they learn? In other words, copy this part, don't make the same mistakes again. And that's published as use cases. So all of these things here are for the companies to have a strong idea of how to move forward.
Okay,
right?
All right, thank you, Munkyu. That's a very interesting and very useful exercise that Singapore is doing. Learning from the lessons learned by the various companies and taking that and spreading that across the whole industry so that everybody can learn from the mistakes done by others or successfully how they have tackled certain challenges or problems. That's wonderful. I mean, and also you have talked about the strategic prioritization. So, on that note, I want to come back to Fahim again. So, on this issue of strategic prioritization and this, learning from the industry successes and failures, how can you draw a parallel to that in Bangladesh or let's say other developing countries?
I think first we need to kind of make a kind of comprehensive assessment about the situation we have. Frankly, I think we also need to accept.
But he is talking about more at a micro level. So learning from the companies at a micro level from their successes and failures, and then spreading that across the whole industry. Does that ring a bell or something that can be done?
Yes, but I think what is more important and what some of our panelists have actually mentioned about the importance of data the overall, like, it is not about technology, it is much about data. So I think as a kind of like country, whatever we say, or as a business or as an individual, I think that kind of data culture needs to be set at first. So whenever I actually talk with even my kind of people, either an IT person or even an operational person or a salesperson or a marketing person or a production person, what I see that they are not kind of like the data, they are not in a thing that they can talk to the data. I think we need to like have that kind of setup or kind of culture or practice that data is a kind of entity here. So
Or as a resource, important resource.
as a resource, and you
Right.
need to have that kind of skill.
Right.
Just because we are also talking on skill, incidentally, I
Correct.
think there is this huge lack of skill for talking to data. We have been discussing much about kind of like communication skill and other things. Like communication is not only you communicate with, one person communicates with another person. I think more important nowadays is how you communicate with any particular data. Because all the organizations have lot of data that are here and there. There is no culture of gathering data, compiling data, and actually making some decision based on data. And at the same time, I think all of our companies, whether it is a big company or a small company, I think there is also an issue of like even the management or the owners also don't want to have lot of transparency on the data thing.
I see, okay.
Because there are a lot of other issues, like it may be like financial issues, tax issues, and all these type of issues. There is this kind of tendency of hiding the data or not being very transparent even across the organization.
Okay,
So I think that is a much more mindset issue, culture issue. We also need
Cultural
to-
issue.
yes,
Thank you, Fahim. You have
we
raised
need
a
to work
very
on that.
important point because, in this new paradigm, data is king. So we must maintain all our data. We must save all our data. And we must have access to that data and look at it as a resource. And we need new skills for that. So on that point, let me come back to Bakhudir here. So do you see any opportunity in collaborating or cooperating with other developing countries in finding how we can effectively and in an accelerated fashion acquire these new skills or carry out reskilling?
We
Because I believe you have also visited authority here in
Exactly,
Bangladesh.
exactly.
So, there are similar organizations in many developing countries.
Yeah.
So, from that perspective also you can share your thoughts.
Yeah. I don't think this is something that we should consider as an opportunity. We should approach this as a must thing.
As a necessity. Okay,
As
wonderful.
a necessity. As a necessity. Yes. In September of this year, we had a big delegation from Bangladesh to Uzbekistan, and that was the starting point of our cooperation. We spent some time together. We discussed various issues, and we clicked. It was that magical, romantic moment when two delegations just clicked. So we already reached preliminary agreements at that point.
Okay.
That Bangladesh, being one of the top countries in the world in terms of business process outsourcing, and this being an area where that Uzbekistan wants to develop. We agreed that there will be a mutual delegation visit to Bangladesh, which is where we are now.
Okay.
So we met with a lot of companies that our partners here organized for us, and we already have a specific action plan where Bangladesh-based companies are opening their branches in Uzbekistan, and through Uzbekistan serving markets of Central Asia and CIS countries.
Okay.
So that is the strategy. So we reached this very interesting modality of cooperation, which is a win-win.
Win-win
solution.
cooperation. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So I think this is a starting point, And as soon as we start, we will definitely expand to other areas, education, new technologies, knowledge transfer. So this is a must, and there should be organizations like BACO, Bangladesh Association of Call
and
Centers,
outsourcing.
and IT Park that should come together and join forces in coordinating these business interactions. So
Okay.
this is where we're going, and I think we're at the start of something very interesting.
Very good, excellent. I mean, you know, this is the other aspect of this new paradigm, that cooperation does not need to happen only amongst developing and developed economies. There can be very effective cooperation and collaboration between developing countries also. And there could be, a lot of opportunities and a lot of, win-win collaboration that can be harnessed out of this kind of cooperation. So thank you for that, Bakudir. So let me actually come to Lawrence on that point is, all this, we have heard, our panelists talk about data privacy, data security. The one thing that has not been talked about is decentralization of governance. One thing that has not been talked about is disintermediation, although it has been talked about in a different aspect. But in terms of, you in your last intervention, you talked about cross-border transactions and things of that nature using stable coins and others. But how do you think, what would be, you think, the role of blockchain technology in spearheading the mobilization of all these new technologies, new business paradigm, and do that in a way that is, at a global scale, not just at a micro scale for a local community, but for the global community?
Yeah, I think one thing you probably see, one of the trend right now, I mean, this is all over the world, in Europe, North America, I think also in Asia, is this new way of doing identity and credential, so-called self-sovereign identity. I mean, European Commission just came out recently announcing that they will, I think by 2027, every EU citizen will have a digital wallet where they can store their identity credential and can be used throughout EU. I think this is going to be very big, okay? And why is because you think about it, because of COVID-19, right, which have definitely accelerated a lot of things, more and more things will be done digitally, online, okay? And then online, when you do any kind of transaction, the first thing you want to know is about the identity of the counterparty. Is he what he say he is? He says he's the bank, is this the bank? Or he say represent his company, does he represent his company? Is he the director? That one, of course, traditionally, we have this very siloed way of doing username, password, or using federated like Google login or Apple login. But that one's going to be changed because you're not good. When you're doing something that need very high trust, you're not good, like your online banking, internet banking, you're not going to trust Google, you're not going to trust Facebook, okay? You want to be something you control, okay? And I think this is how does it put together? For example, one thing, right, we talk about skills, right? We have globalization. For example, let's say in Bangladesh, right, when people want to outsource. I mean, I think one of the things is or learning about these things, which I say more and more, it might not be happening in the university. It could be a lot of like Coursera or one of these things. Okay, we're offering all these new things. But one thing, I mean, let's say when I am a company and we want to hire all this talent, I need to know, are they qualified to do that? Are they certified, right? And I think this whole digital identity, okay, where especially when this is all online, where you don't even meet this person. How do I know he is qualified to do these things? I think this is going to be something that will be coming up with all this, where we need the education and the training. When you have done this, how do you certify this? Okay, and so that I can trust that that you have done the project. Have you done the project? You have done the project. I think blockchain, this will be a blockchain-based kind of what we call a digital identity or credential. I think this is something that is going to be very important and will be a basis for a lot more of the application. For example, I think Singapore recently has come up with what they call the foundation of the digital infrastructure. And one thing I think I totally agree with what they say is that, okay, you have the internet and you have the application, but there you have some very fundamental infrastructure you need. And what are they? What the first thing they say is the digital identity. And on top of that will be consent. We talk about data privacy, right? That you need to consent. That people cannot just use your data. You need the consent of the data holder, and also about data interchange. Data interchange will be also built on top of the identity. When you start exchanging data, I mean, I need to know. I mean, who are you? I mean, are you really the owner of the data, right? And then payment, like we talk about CBDC. Again, if we do CBDC, think about it. You also need to know the identity, right? I need to know. I mean, who you are because of AML, because of KYC. So I think this identity, okay, which is, I think a lot of people, it doesn't happen with blockchain, but I think a lot of people, I think that blockchain is probably uh, will be a good way to base, because then you can take away a lot of the trust on the human. You have machine trust. I think this thing with
Right.
the identity with credential, as I said, to have to do certification, I think this is going to be something that will come out, and then it will affect everyone,
Okay.
affect the any kind of application, because these are very foundational, the infrastructure.
Okay. No, thank you, Lawrence. I mean, this blockchain-based credentials, I mean, that could be completely decentralized and something that would not be controlled by any individual entity like Google or
Right.
central government. I mean, that is
Yeah.
the kind of future, the kind of vision that we all have, so that we have better control over our own identity. We have better
Yep.
control of what
Yeah.
we want
The
to
user
do
management.
as
I mean, you don't
individuals.
have to,
That is
right,
correct.
rely
No,
on
no,
those.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. In fact, we have talked about, all of you have talked about almost all aspects of Industrial Revolution 4.0. The only aspect that I think is missing or has not been talked about at length is how important is going to be, how important entrepreneurship is going to be for this whole ecosystem. So, I know that Mr. Abdul Bari is working on this initiative of popularizing entrepreneurship, and at the same time also, informing potential entrepreneurs about the risks and benefits of entrepreneurship. So I want to go to him with the last question is, how important is it for the new paradigm, the new economy, the Industry 4.0 economy, and the 5G world that we are entering, and the world dominated by, cyborgs and automation and new kind of skills that will allow us to control those cyborgs. So in that kind of an economy, how important is entrepreneurship?
Thank you, Karim bhai. Let me tell you one thing. Though in my first phase, I told that this revolution is not anything new or anything, I mean, it is being built upon on the previous revolution, but it is fundamentally different from others in a way. It is fundamentally disrupting the way we live, work, and interrelated with each other. And it is in the wake of this disruption, there are challenges and opportunities. One of the opportunities, entrepreneurship opportunity, because it is disrupting almost everything. Say, for example, 20 years before, there was no BD jobs. 10 years before, there was no patao, right? So it offers enormous opportunities, but we need visionary entrepreneurs. We need an enabling ecosystem where government is trying to put a lot of efforts and money and policy and everything. And not in Bangladesh. Almost every economy is trying to build a robust and enabling ecosystem, because we know a new bunch of creative, visionary leaders They will not only own a business, they will inspire a group of technology evangelists, and they will excite a new group of investors so that they can put together right resource, both financial, human resource, and other stuff, and they can solve the old problem or even a new problem in a way which is cost effective, which is, scalable, and of course, which is necessary to solve the new set of problems that we are facing today. So entrepreneurship is going to play a big role.
Very big
and
role.
if we fail to promote this new paradigm of entrepreneurship, and if we fail to put together a, technology-driven entrepreneurial supply chain, probably we will be at the bottom of the.
Right. Very good. Now, thank you, Barry. Those are very important thoughts. You know, one of the things that we have not talked about, the impact of these various industrial revolutions. You know, the speed of things, speed of execution, the speed of change is accelerating with each iteration of the industrial revolution. That is something that we have to keep in mind. So, for example, 50 years ago, to build $1 billion company took 50 years. Today, we see these unicorns, these billion-dollar startups happening in a matter of months, not even a year. So there could be a time in future where we could have a disruptive new startup becoming a $1 billion company in a few weeks. That is even possible. So the speed of change, as we used to say, change is the only constant. No, it is not a constant. Speed of change is even changing. So as we go from one iteration of the Industrial Revolution to the next, the speed of change is accelerating. And, there is no limit to that. So I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Dr. Leong Mung Kyu, Director of the Institute of System Science of National University of Singapore. I want to thank Mr. Abdul Bari, the Data Scientist and Innovation Specialist at the Bangladesh High-Tech Park Authority. I want to thank Dr. Lawrence Ma, President of the Hong Kong Blockchain Society. I want to thank Mr. Fahim Masroor, the founder and CEO of bdjobs.com. And finally, I want to thank Mr. Ayupov Bakhodir Savkatovich, the Deputy Director of IT Park Uzbekistan. This is Habibullah and Karim, founder and CEO of Technohaven Company, signing off from this session of the World Congress on IT 2021 in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, sir. That was an amazing session. Can we have another round of applause for the amazing session on IR4.0 skilling? I would like to take the honor and invite on stage for the crest-giving ceremony Dr. Muhammad Abdul Mannan, PAA, Executive Director of Bangladesh Computer Council, along with our organizer, Musharraf Hussain Shumon, Director, Bangladesh Computer Samiti, on stage to give away the crest to our honorable speakers and moderator. I would like to request Dr. Mannan to please present the first crest to our speaker, Mr. Abdul Bari, Data Scientist and Innovation Specialist, Digital Entrepreneurship and Innovation Ecosystem Development Project, Bangladesh High-Tech Park Authority. Congratulations, sir. Thank you so much. I would like to request Mannan, sir, to please present the next crest to Mr. Fahim Masroor, CEO, bdjobs.com, and former President, BCS. Now I would like to request Musharraf Hussain Shumon, sir, to please present the crest to Mr. Ayupov Bakhodir Shafkatovich, Deputy Director, IT Park, Uzbekistan. Now, I would like to request all of our speakers, along with our guests on stage, to present the moderator crest to our honorable moderator, Mr. Habibullah N. Karim, former president, basis and founder and CEO, Technohaven Company Limited, Corporation Limited. I'm sorry for that. And with that, this is the wrap of our session on IR 4.0 skilling. Thank you so much. And let's go for the photo session.